for good grades.
I wish I was better at relationships.
I wish I was an artist.
I wish I had a better relationship with my wife.
I wish for a life full of happiness.
I wish I may. I wish I might have the wish. I wish tonight.
Good morning. Top of the morning to you. Happy Monday. I'm not confused. I do know that St. Patrick's Day is March 17th, but you'll understand shortly why I chose to do my podcast and wear green today. Please notice at the bottom of the screen all of the information about getting the booklet that I've put together for you. That booklet allows you to understand kind of what I would work with on your life with you. So grab that and take a peek, and all of my contact information is available to you if it's something that you think you would like to do. So St. Patrick's Day in the last 8 years has become a commemorative day for me to remember people I love. My father's mother came from Ireland, was 17, and she loved her Irish heritage, and it was always present. And when she died, I knew on St. Patrick's Day that I wanted to make that connection with my father. And so I would often call him, if not always, on St. Patrick's Day, and we would talk about Grandma. My father died 8 years ago, and rather than be sad and sort of morbid or thinking sad things on the anniversary of his death, I made a decision that I was going to have a piece of cake on his birthday, and I was going to celebrate St. Patrick's Day in a fun way to remember the love of that between my dad and my grandmother. Then I got some social history about my own family because I was adopted, and discovered that I am Irish as well. And so it all just made sense that St. Patrick's Day was going to be a commemorative day for me to think lovingly for once about things in my life and family that were good. This past Friday, that was St. Patrick's Day, we went to help a friend with some things, and we packed up in a hurry to go. And I wasn't thinking about Friday being St. Patrick's Day. And all day I felt a little, I don't know if sad seems heavy, but I was missing my celebration that I have been enjoying since my father died. It brings me some joy. So this morning, when I was sitting thinking about my podcast and what I was going to do, I saw St. Patrick's Day on the calendar and thought, why would there be a different celebration? And discovered that Newfoundland actually has a paid holiday for commemorating St. Patrick's Day because they had so many Irish immigrants come to Newfoundland that it's that important to them. So other than Northern Ireland, Newfoundland and another little village in the Caribbean called Montserrat are the only places where it is a national holiday. And I found it really interesting and wanted to share some of the things around St. Patrick's Day here on my podcast. I have done Christmas. I think I did something for Valentine's Day. And so it only makes sense that I would proceed and look after doing St. Patrick's Day. So what's interesting about Montserrat is that many of the first Europeans who settled on the island of Montserrat in the Caribbean in 1632 were Irish Catholics who came as indentured servants. The Africans who came to Montserrat were enslaved and worked on plantations. The customs and traditions of the two groups blended, and the African and Irish influences can be seen as you move across the island, which is really interesting. I want to do a little bit more looking into that. I find heritage so interesting because I think I've always felt like I didn't know my own. Montserrat has villages with Irish names like Cork Hill, St. Patrick's, and Delvins. Many people have Irish surnames such as O'Donoghue, Tuitt, Allen, Mead, and Sweeney. And you'll even get a shamrock-shaped passport stamp when you go through customs at the airport or a ferry terminal in Montserrat. The striking resemblance of its cliffs and shorelines and its historical ties to Ireland led to the island being fondly called the Emerald Isle of the Caribbean. So where the national holiday comes into play, which is so interesting, is that St. Patrick's Day became, I'm reading this from essence.com news when I Googled to find out what Montserrat's claim to St. Patrick's Day was. So now I have to go back and find that again. So on St. Patrick's Day on Montserrat, St. Patrick's Day became a national holiday in 1985, but it wasn't to celebrate St. Patrick, the patron saint of Ireland. The annual festival commemorates the enslaved Africans known as the Freedom Fighters, and they lost their lives after their planned St. Patrick's Day rebellion set for March 17th, 1768. And the reason they chose St. Patrick's Day was that they knew that most of the enslavers would be drunk and distracted by the holiday. Plans for the rebellion were reportedly overheard by an Irish woman who revealed them to the British, and tragically, 9 of the rebellion's leaders were put to death, while another 30 were detained before being exiled off the island. So although the rebellion was unsuccessful, it marked a critical moment in the movement to abolish slavery in the Caribbean region, which I think is so cool. This was the first in a series of uprisings across the Caribbean that helped end slavery in the region, which ultimately came with the Slavery Abolition Act of 1833 across the British Empire. So that is why they celebrate St. Patrick's Day. It's twofold. It acknowledges the influence of the Irish on Montserrat and offers an opportunity to reflect on the sacrifices made in the fight for freedom by African ancestors. And then they speak of the silk cotton tree, where a runaway slave man was beheaded and hanged to deter others from fleeing, is where the lighting of the flame ceremony takes place annually to mark the festival's opening. The 10-day experience concludes with a heritage feast that features dishes such as the hearty meat stew known as goat water, Montserrat's national dish. One thing that will always stand out is seeing the mixture of Ankara prints, Afro Madras cloths, people dressed up as abolitionists such as Olada Equino, amid leprechaun hats and t-shirts. It's a nuanced St. Patrick's Day celebration unlike any other this writer had ever experienced. And it's about honoring the memory of those freedom fighters. So I think that's really cool. And that's why they celebrate St. Patrick's Day. So now let's move to Newfoundland. So Newfoundland celebrates St. Patrick's Day because in the geographic location that Newfoundland is, often when people would become shipwrecked, well, maybe not often, but they ended up. So here's the Newfoundland folklore legend. Has it that? So this is from, let me just see where I got my information here. Hold on one second. A whalehouse.ca blog about Newfoundland. So the folklore around it is that 2 centuries ago, there were 2 brothers fishing off the shores of St. John's when the fog rolled in and their ship was subsequently lost. About a week later, the brothers found themselves off the west coast of Ireland, where they were welcomed by a small fishing community. Because it was the fall of the year, the brothers spent the winter in Ireland repairing their boat with the help of the Irish locals, and the following spring, when their boat was fixed, they sailed back to Newfoundland, determined to reunite with their families they had left behind when they went out and got lost. When they arrived back in St. John's, nobody would believe it was them, since it was assumed that the 2 brothers had perished at sea. In fact, their family in St. John's had even held a funeral for them and erected gravestones. So they have so many Irish immigrants in Newfoundland that it is a municipal holiday, and people who work the regular hours on that day actually get extra pay, or they get the day off. So it's a family event, and they call it, in Newfoundland, nothing escapes St. Patrick's Day decorations. The capital city of St. John's is covered in Irish green, and national historic sites get a special St. Patrick's Day makeover. So then I went on and did a little bit more research about St. Patrick himself. So he was born in, let me just get to my notes, North England or South Scotland, in 385 AD, and he died in 461 AD. He, they say, was 122 by those dates, and that is in a book of medieval history that date and concept of how old he was came about. So the Canadian Newfoundland and Labrador get the holiday, Montserrat gets the holiday, but Montreal actually has the prize, if there was one, for the longest running consecutive held St. Patrick's Day parade in North America. They've been doing it since 1823. It attracts 500 to 700,000 people, and it's, like I said, the longest running consecutive parade. Montreal has a high heritage of Irish immigrants as well, and they have the shamrock on their city flag because of their pride in being Irish. The national holiday in Northern Ireland came around 1903 when they decided to have a bank holiday, and it was done by the Irish MP James O'Mara. But in 1927, O'Mara decided that they were banning the drinking of ale on a religious holiday because St. Patrick was actually a saint. When he was taken hostage by some raiders of North Ireland and taken as a slave, he was there when he was 16 for, I believe, let me see here, if it was 8 years. And when he left Ireland, when he was free, he went to Gaul, which is now modern day France. And he actually started to study at a monastery because while he was enslaved in Ireland, he became a Christian. And so he went and he studied, and then he wanted to go back to Ireland to preach Christianity to the Irish. So the concept that St. Patrick actually took all the snakes out of Ireland, most people think is a metaphor for the fact that he got rid of the pagans out of Ireland. And that's what they refer to of him getting the snakes. Apparently, 10,000 years there had been no snakes in Ireland. So they're not giving him the credit of actually getting rid of the reptile. It's metaphor for the pagans. So what else can I tell you about this? So this O'Mara man who decided that because he was a saint, it's a religious holiday, we shouldn't be drinking. He banned drinking until 1961. They were allowed to permit drinking, but only at the Royal Dublin Society dog show, which I thought was sort of cute. And it wasn't until 1970 that the law was repealed completely, and St. Patrick's Day became more of a secular holiday celebrated by Irish people to remember their heritage, and a lot of drinking in pubs began in the 70s. I'm just trying to see if I've got everything else about it. What else was really interesting was his name. So he was actually dubbed Maewyn Succat, Succat, and he himself adopted Patricius as his Christian Roman name. And so the other thing that kind of comes about is Irish people, if they shorten St. Patrick's Day, they shorten it to St. Paddy's Day. And it's spelt with a D, not a T, because the Irish spelling of St. Patrick is, let's see if I can find that here in my notes. I won't be able to say it, but it had a D in the spelling of the name. Padraig, Padraig. And they believe that if you shorten it to Patty, it is short form for Patricia, which is a girl's name. So if you're going to be truly Irish, you need to know that St. Paddy's Day is spelled Paddy. So that's my little history for you on St. Patrick's Day and how it's sort of evolved and come about. The other interesting thing that I found was that the first parade you might think would have been in Ireland, but it was actually in New York City. And it was in 1737. And the reason that happened, it's in 1762. There were Irish people in Boston. Boston is the other place that is highly Irish immigrants, and they went there in 37. And the first parade is in 1762 because there were some soldiers who were fighting for the English, and they were in New York, and they had a parade down the streets of New York City on St. Patrick's Day. And of course, like the other Saint Nicholas that we talked about at Christmas, they celebrate the day that these saints die. And so that's why St. Patrick's Day is March 17th, because that is the day that St. Patrick died. So I thought that also was kind of interesting that I decided to choose to celebrate the heritage of my family on St. Patrick's Day, but it was after my dad died and my grandmother died. And so it's celebration of people after they're gone. And that's kind of what St. Patrick's Day is synonymous for. So I just really enjoyed those things about St. Patrick's Day, and I wanted to share them with you and give you a little bit more education about why we celebrate St. Patrick's Day, who he was, and what it is that he did for the Irish. And that when we went to Ireland in 2019, my grandmother is from County Down, and that is where St. Patrick was, and we went and saw his grave, and it's very, very old. He was responsible for bringing a lot of schools and churches to Ireland, and he is certainly something that the Irish enjoy. Now, the wearing of green is North American more than it is Irish. Apparently, if you go to Ireland on St. Patrick's Day, most people wearing green are not from Ireland. The little folklore around wearing green is that wearing green makes you invisible to the leprechaun. And if you don't wear green on St. Patrick's Day, you may be pinched by a leprechaun. The shamrock is because St. Patrick was a saint, and he used the 3 leaves of the shamrock to teach the Trinity of the Father, the Son, and the Spirit to the people that he preached Christianity to. So that's why the shamrock. And the green and the orange and the white that is often in the regalia and the clothing, like what I'm wearing if you're watching on YouTube, is the symbolism from, I believe it was 1937. The green is Irish. The green is Catholic, the orange is Protestant, and the white is the peace that is currently between those two religions, because they often were at war. And so that's the symbolism of the flag. And then the shamrock also has a bit of a Christian theory to that as well, because of the saint using it in his preaching. So that's why the green, the orange, and the white on their flag and in some of the clothing and the shirt that I'm wearing today. So that's why top of the morning to you on March the 20th, because I stole from Newfoundland today, because I missed my own celebration and decided that why not? I can get in on this and I can teach a little bit more about why this celebration has become what it is and why it's celebrated in certain parts of the world. Apparently, Australia also now celebrates St. Patrick's Day, Canada and Ireland and Montserrat. So there you go. Happy St. Patrick's Day. Have a great rest of your week. As much as I enjoy discussions, I also want to provide a service to people who would like more. If you want to do more than listen, get in touch with me with the links in the description. You can also email me through hello@beyondwishfulthinking.ca. And I'd like to give you content you enjoy, so please leave a review wherever you're listening to this podcast. If you're watching through my YouTube channel, leave your comments below. If you want more of Beyond Wishful Thinking podcasts, make sure to subscribe for free on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever you are listening right now.